Do you like books? I mean, really, really like books? Then you're in the right place. Each week, your host, Sam Hankin, interviews the best of today's top-selling authors and the up-and-coming superstars of modern literature. This is The Avid Reader. Here is your host, Sam Hankin.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again today on The Avid Reader, brought to you by Wellington Square Bookshop, which coincidentally is my bookshop, and blah, 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 blah. So today our guest is Katherine Heiny. Her latest book is Early Morning Riser, published earlier this month by Knopf. Her first book was Single, Carefree, Mellow in 2015, which was a collection of short stories. We talked about it back then, which is 6 years ago. Then her second novel, Standard Deviation, was released in 2015, and we chatted about that as well 4 years ago. She also writes for The New Yorker and The Atlantic, but we don't discuss those. She's lived in London, The Hague, and Boyne City, Michigan. Google says that one of the must-do things to see in Boyne City is the dog park, which gets a 4.8-star review with 57 review. She now lives in Bethesda, where apparently the dog park is not as nice. Early Morning Riser is about Jane and her life in Boyne City from 2002 until 2019. She starts out at 26 and Duncan's in his mid-40s. She is our protagonist, but there are so many well-drawn characters like Jimmy and Gary and Aggie and Frida, to name a few. It's good when you remember their characters' names. It means it's a good book. Plus the other protagonists, not necessarily in order, actually I couldn't put them in the right order, are food, clothes, and sex and wine. So for good or for bad, the book basically is a mirror of my own life, which makes me both happy and sad. So welcome, Katherine, and thanks for putting up with me for a third time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, because it's my tendency to blab, as you may remember, we may never get another chance to actually have you tell me what the book is about and then show us the cover, and then we can talk about that and the epigraphs a bit.
I'm really bad at elevator pitches, but this is the book, Early Morning Riser. It's about a woman who moves to a small town in Michigan to become a teacher, and she falls in love with a local Lothario. And it's about how their a car accident changes their lives forever in unexpected ways, which makes it really sad, but it's actually funny.
Yes, it is funny. It's really funny, and I laughed out loud a lot. I always wonder whether you laugh out loud too. So you lived in Boyne City. Why the hell did you live there? It's got 3,000 people, and it doesn't seem like there's much to do there.
Well, I grew up in Michigan, in Midland, Michigan, and we always vacationed in northern Michigan. And then my husband and I moved around a lot when our children were little, so we decided to buy a house in Boyne City so the children would have more, like the summers would be more stable. And it's a really wonderful place. It has the most beautiful sunsets in the world.
Yeah, and you talk about sunsets, or you talk about sunrises a lot in the book. Hey, do you know you have no Wikipedia entry?
I didn't know that.
And there's a blank with your name, but nothing else. The only thing it says is a human.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I'll fix it.
You should write a really complimentary one for yourself.
Can I tell a quick story about the dog park in Boyne City?
Yeah.
You brought it up. So when I was writing the novel, when I was finishing it in Boyne City, I would get up really early every morning and take our dogs to the dog park, which is really nice. And one day I was talking to a man there, and he gave his dog a 10-minute warning when it was time to leave the dog park. And it made me so happy that I went home, and it's the kind of thing that really, even though it's not in the book, I find it really inspiring. And I think with the pandemic, that sort of random, hilarious meeting isn't happening, and I miss it. It makes it harder to write.
The reason the book made me sad sometimes is because I remind myself a lot of Gary. And I know. And I wonder about three-way light bulbs too. You know, it's like, yeah, I don't know which one. and then, you know, like when she says, her mom says, you know, that they should only do road construction 2 weeks a year. And he says, that's exactly the way I feel about carrot peelers. It's like, I do that.
And Gary's long list of likes and dislikes about food, well, they're mainly dislikes because he doesn't really like anything. Did you share any of those?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of them. Like, I hate liver and onions, but
Okay.
if I see it on the menu, I am compelled to order it. So I'm very careful with menus, the way I look at them, because if I see liver and onions, then I have to have it, even though I despise it. But I put a lot of ketchup on it. So that's kind of, yes, you know. So yeah, and yeah, like yesterday, I went to my doctor and I just said to him, hey, do you have any celebrity clients? I mean, what the hell am I thinking, you know?
Well, I do that kind of thing all the time too. And like my mom had oral surgery a few years ago, and the surgeon was so kind and so considerate. And my mother has dementia, but he just spoke to her perfectly respectfully. And like when the nurse and I were in the recovery room with my mom, I said to her, like, I think I may be in love with the doctor. And she looked really scared. And I said, not in a romantic way. And she was like, mm-hmm. I was like, I'm happily married. My husband's a wonderful person. Like, I just couldn't stop going. But so yeah, I wonder what I'm saying half the time too.
Yeah, it's like, this is where I start blabbing. It's like yesterday, like this customer of mine at the bookstore, like sometimes I give him books. I like to give away books. And he wanted a biography of Borges. So I got him a really nice one. It costs a lot of money. And then I said, here's the biography you want. And he goes, how much is it? And I go, can't remember. And he goes, well, I got to pay for it. And I said, I can't remember how much it is. He goes, well, I'm a really good cook, so let me make you something.
Oh, I love it.
But then I said, I don't like when I practiced law, I never liked accepting food from clients because a lot of it might be poisoned. And so I said, okay, but yeah, okay, make me a poppy seed cake. And that was in your book too.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and whatever you do, don't put any lemon in it. And his wife goes, well, there is a lot of lemon in poppy seed cakes. I said, yeah, but in this poppy seed cake, don't put anything. Don't put anything, just the poppy seeds. And then they're walking out the door and I go, you know, that book cost a lot of money for me and all I'm getting is a poppy seed cake for it. You know?
Even though you'd set it up to be exactly that way.
Yeah. And yesterday I yelled at everyone too. And then, see, this is what I do. So I was playing racquetball with this guy and he's really big. And then he started saying how he had peripheral neuropathy, so it hurt his game. And then after we played, he goes, you know, I think my arches have fallen. So then it's the book.
But actually, I have a story that's about Gary and squash, which is close to racquetball, which is in the later part of the book. I wanted Gary, who's really bewildered, unobservant person, to have a health scare. But I didn't want it to be serious, and I wanted it to be sort of maybe Gary's own fault for being so oblivious to his surroundings. So while I'm writing that exact chapter, my husband goes to play squash, and he texts me to say that his squash partner is having blurred vision and dizzy spells, and they're going to the ER because they're worried he's having a stroke. So I'm like, oh my God, keep me updated. So he texted me from the ER to say that his squash partner, instead of wearing his squash goggles, was wearing his wife's bifocals. And that's why the blurred vision. And I was just like, okay, I'll put it right in the book. I don't even have to change it.
No, it happened to me yesterday. I was too cheap to buy a good racket because I hadn't played in a while. So I bought this kit that had the racket in it, 2 balls, and a pair of really cheap glasses. And now they've gotten all blurry and scratched up. And I kind of had the same feeling. It's like, yes, it's just like your book. And it's like, you know, it's funny because, you know, Jimmy is a slow learner. But Gary is worse than a slow learner because at least everything Jimmy says is right, you know? And like when he says, isn't that something? You know, because people say that and it's appropriate and may get on your nerves after a while. But Gary says things that are just really, I mean, there's something wrong with Gary. There's nothing wrong with Jimmy.
Yeah, I agree. And it was very important to me that Jimmy, even though he has an intellectual disability, that he be a complex person and a kind and decent man and worthy of love all on his own. And not just like be defined by his learning disability. But Gary, well, I think Aggie hasn't let Gary make a decision in like 30 years. So he's kind of forgotten how to. And I think that somebody, when I read the first chapter and said that they thought that Aggie encouraged Gary's likes and dislikes because she thought it made him a more interesting person, when it doesn't. It just makes him a more difficult person.
Well, at dinner, at 7 o'clock, we eat dinner, and that's Jeopardy. And then we watch Jeopardy, but I don't like watching Wheel of Fortune.
Oh my God. You
I know.
are Gary.
I know. And my father, the way he died was he watched Jeopardy, and then he stood up before Wheel of Fortune came on and he goes, I feel dizzy. And then he died.
Oh.
It's not sad. It's just how he died, which is actually kind of a good way to die. He didn't have to see Wheel of Fortune. But yeah, so here's the thing. I don't know if I should be asking this, but you know, Duncan and Jane have an enormous amount of sex constantly. And then I got kind of upset and I asked my girlfriend if I could say this on the interview, but we don't have nearly that much sex. Do you have that much sex?
I don't think anybody has as much sex as Duncan has. I think that's kind of Duncan's, like, I didn't want Jimmy to be defined by his learning disability, but I guess I wanted Duncan to be defined by how much he likes to have sex and how much he wants to have it all the time.
And he's so nonchalant about it, especially when he says it's like eating, he's as happy when he's doing what he is doing to Jane as he is when
he has banana bread.
Yeah, I love this. I'm so happy.
But I think, I mean, some people don't like Duncan. I really liked him. I thought he was really transparent with Duncan. What you see is what you get. And I also think that he's a super flexible person and very laid back. I think he winds up being a good husband, even though everybody in the whole town thinks he won't be.
There are a few places where, and you do this a lot in your other books too, is where I'm not quite sure where things are going and I'm getting scared. Like when Aggie and Duncan go away to Scratch's, the names in this book are hilarious, but when they go away to Scratch's funeral, was Scratch the funeral or is he hosted the party? I can't remember.
Scratch is the party host.
Okay, well, so when they go away, and I'm assuming, especially after the phone call, that, you know, what's happening is what's happening. And then when they came back and Aggie's so pissed, I still thought in the back of my mind, I wonder if, which is what's so cool about a good book, because the reader's kind of like, you know, confused. And then the other thing that I was worried about was in the last, I don't want to give them any spoilers, but towards the end of the book when Jane switches and there's a coldness to her and because of certain events. And I thought, I wonder if that's how she's going to end up, you know?
Oh, yeah. But I think that Duncan and his first wife have a very entangled relationship still. I think that they think that they're just friends, but they actually sort of can't resist irritating each other and one-upping each other to a certain extent. Like, I think they think they've achieved total neutrality about each other, but they haven't. So when they come back from the funeral and they're really mad at each other, it did occur to me something still might have happened. But I guess I trusted the way Jane interprets it to be the truth. But I think there are a lot of clues throughout the book that maybe Duncan isn't completely faithful, but he's completely loving. So it works.
Well, like I said, he doesn't treat sex the way other people treat it. It's just like everything else he does. It's just all natural and pleasant and like banana bread. It would be no difference in terms of that. Yeah, and I wondered that too. So how come, it's nice that you put the recipes in, but how come clothes and food kind of drive the book to a certain extent, to a great extent?
I always want to know what characters are eating. Like when I'm reading a book and it says they had pasta for dinner, I'm like, but what kind of pasta? How was it? Was it good? My husband, I don't cook at all, but my husband's a really good cook. So basically, as soon as lunch is over every day, I start getting excited about what we're going to have for dinner. And I took this class about the different kinds, about like people's relationship to food at a community college. This is like 35 years ago, and I'm still talking about it. And it said that one of the kinds of relationships people have with food is a caretaker relationship. And the relationship is like, because I love you, I'm going to cook this for you. And because you love me, you're going to eat it and like it. And that became, my husband isn't controlling with food, but he does have it. Like he likes to cook for people. He likes them to appreciate it. So I suppose that comes in some ways. And I like to know what people are wearing too. I like to kind of set the scene. Gone with the Wind is one of my favorite books. And early in the book, Scarlett like tries on every dress she owns and sort of debates the merit of it. And that's one of my favorite scenes. I like to write about food and clothes and sex. Anything else is totally, bonus material.
And it's nice that you threw a few of the recipes in too, because we can try them, Carrie and I,
Were there recipes in there? Which
yeah.
I got the hot cocoa one.
Yeah, well, plus when she left with Duncan and left, Jane doesn't have to do all the stuff she does for everybody. But so when Gary stays there and she leaves directions like you would, like some people do when they leave their dog with someone. No, there was the recipe for a couple of things.
Oh yeah,
there is.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny. There's so many passive aggressive, denigrating people in the book, and they're always directed towards Jane. And I think some people should dress nice, and other people should dress not so nice. Or Aggie saying, "What do you think I should prepare?" And then Duncan and she know that she's gonna differ with what they suggest. So why does everyone pick on Jane, and why does Jane take it? Well, I wouldn't let Gary stay. I would just say, no, I'm not going to do it.
Well, from the moment I knew Jane was going to have that weekend alone with Jimmy and the girls, I wanted Gary to be there. Gary is like a gift I gave myself. I was like happy whenever Gary could come over and be ridiculous. So I think it was more, I wanted Gary to be there than Jane wanted Gary to be there. But I also think that Jane has a lot of guilt over what happened to Jimmy's mother. So she's never going to really take a chance at putting somebody's life in danger. And Aggie just sort of showed up in the early chapters and basically like she talked and I wrote it down. I didn't realize how deeply passive aggressive she was till maybe like the 4th chapter. And there was a line in the book, something that Aggie says near the end, that the copy editor kept flagging it and saying it's not quite grammatical. I think it's, and I was like, but Aggie will be mad at me if I change it. We can't, like Aggie's a very real bossy person to me. So she was even bossing me around. So, but I also sort of like her. She does a lot of, like, I think it's kind of good to have a person like Aggie in your life, somebody who takes control.
Yeah, and makes really good food, better than you could ever make.
Yeah.
Like when she eats all 6 of those cookies when Glenn's taking the bath. Yeah, I would do that. I would do that too. So yeah. And Glenn also, I love the way, well, even Jane brings it up, that her speech is not grammatical, and sometimes she sounds like she's French. It's nice. It's a nice addition to the book, I think. How come? What was I gonna say? Oh, beauty. How come everyone, like Frida, you think at first she's not attractive, but then all of a sudden she becomes beautiful, and then like in the Seinfeld episode, what's Jimmy's putative girlfriend's name? Raylene?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, you look at her one way, she's unattractive. You look at her another way, she's beautiful. And then there's other people that I don't know they're beautiful until Jane tells me they're beautiful. And I'm wondering, since it is in the third person, I don't know, are they or are they not? They just seem to be because Jane decides they are at some point. And it's like 7 different people, I think. Maybe not that many.
Well, it was important to me that Aggie be good looking for the role that she plays in the book. And I think that Aggie is actually very, very pretty, but a bossy personality pulls back on that somewhat. And the point where Jane thinks Frida is beautiful is when Frida's at Jane's side while giving birth, and just the emotions of that day make everything seem beautiful to Jane. Boy, who else is beautiful? I don't know. It's like food and clothing and sex. I like to talk about how people look, and I guess I want them to look good.
Well, so if you're thinking of food, sex, and clothing, so what's actually driving the book?
Well, this book has a plot, which my previous 2 books just were about food and sex and clothing with no plot. I started writing the book. I started writing a first book set in Boyne City that was about brother and sister who hire someone to get in an accident with their aging mother because they want her to stop driving. And I couldn't make that work, but Duncan was the man that they hired, and I really liked him. So I started over with this new novel, and I didn't want it to be told from Duncan's point of view. I wanted it to be from the new woman in his life who was going to have to deal with his like legion of ex-girlfriends. And I was talking it over with my husband in a bar in Boyne City back when like going to bars was something we did, was a thing. And he said about something about keeping the car accident in the book. And I was like, no, that would never work, which is what I do whenever my husband like tells me anything. And then like a day later, I'm like, wow, that was a really good idea. You're so smart. So that was sort of how it came about, was this failed novel. I sort of took the elements that I could make work. And I knew the novel from the beginning. I knew how it would play out and what each chapter would be about. I didn't know the specifics, but in one of the later chapters, Jane goes on a field trip where sort of everything goes wrong, and I set that as like I saved that for like 2 days. I was like, I'm just going to write this scene, and it's going to incorporate every funny thing that happened to me when I went on a field trip as the parent chaperone. They didn't all happen on the same field trip, but they all happened. And that was the gift to myself.
Yeah, the farmer, kind of a farmer, Mr. Fry. He's really funny and really mean, but I liked him a lot. I thought he was a nice guy, but especially with the lambs. And that was a really well painted scene. How it's like the lion laying down with the lamb. Everybody, all the kids who had their fights and disputes, they all went away. So I went to a farm like that one time, and it was horses, and they had like 20 stalls. Some of the stalls had a sign that says, "Do not touch, he bites." So I was very careful not to touch any of those horses. So then I touched one that wasn't in a stall that said bites, and he bit me really hard on the hand and started bleeding. And I was thinking he probably should have been in one of the other stalls. But then I thought,
labeled, yeah.
then I thought maybe it was just me, something wrong with me. It is like Gary, and no, it's like really depressing for me.
I don't think you're like Gary. I really don't.
I'm like a combination of, if you took all actually, yeah, if you combined all those characters together into one person, that would be quite interesting. Hey, do you ever get those? This is Gary, geez. Do you ever get those Christmas letters from people who think they're interesting and they write like 3-page long letters?
Yeah.
I write them.
Edit. Yeah.
Yeah. I write those too, but I make up an entire family and send it out to like 100 people. Like Boo Boo is doing well after her surgery, and she says she might be able to get back on the squash court, I said, and maybe make the Olympic trials, although she said she would never make them anyway in the first place, like that.
Can I be on the Christmas card list?
Yeah.
Can I get it?
Yeah, I'll put you on. I have all your information right here.
There was a really funny McSweeney's piece a couple years ago where they like fact checked somebody's Christmas letter and whether, their kids' grades were actually that good and whether they really went on those trips and stuff. And that was great. My parents used to send those letters, and but my mom never wanted to admit that like any of her children were having sex. So when we had boyfriends and girlfriends, she would call them our special friends.
Oh, my mom did that too.
Like Kathy is living with her special friend in London. Like, I wonder how most people interpreted that statement.
Yeah, especially nowadays. It's like the special friend could be any of the 30 genders that are mentioned with Facebook.
Or like a paid companion, or like right. What does it really mean? Or imaginary friend, I don't know.
They are special. Oh yeah, you know what else you do? I'm just going through this.
Okay.
There was one page, I think it was page 35, and it was like 2 paragraphs of flash fiction, because you put a line before and after, and one was, "Winters were long here. It was a fact." That was a chapter, kind of.
It was a scene, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like line. And the one before it about where Frida talks about her one unusual sexual experience was also about 4 lines.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how you decide that.
Winters are really long in northern Michigan. It's mainly long and hard and snowy. And that the line that just says winters were long here, it was a fact, that was in the very first draft. That was maybe one of the first things I wrote, and it stayed through all the iterations of the novel. It just was very important to me that it stand on its own and be like, hey, other places have winters, but then there's a northern Michigan winter. I mean, there's all of Canada, but yeah.
And then they have a cabin up north, and then she wonders whether they have a cabin up northern than that.
It is a really weird thing.
Yeah.
People in northern Michigan have cabins further north. Yeah. So it was very surprising to me.
Do you laugh out loud when you write it?
Not usually. Sometimes I get the idea for something funny, and then like I can see the sort of outline of the joke, and when I finally figure out what the specific part of it is going to be, it makes me laugh. And a lot of times I stop writing and I run into my husband's office, and my husband has very specific instructions not to interrupt me when I'm writing, but I interrupt him all the time. And he's not a writer, so he's will give me like 10 ideas and not not worried that he's gonna later want one of them. So I'll run in there and say, like, what would you say? What would be funny to say here? And he'll just spin it. And sometimes he hits on exactly what I'm trying to say. And then I laugh. And then I go back and write it down.
It's funny how it works, because like, if you go back to the carrot peeler thing, it's really funny, but I wouldn't have laughed out loud unless Jane almost spilled a little wine down her blouse. And
Yeah.
that's what made me laugh out loud.
And there's the part in the book where Duncan's explaining how when you're dating somebody, they think that you have another girlfriend who has her book club on Sundays, and that's why it's saying our connection is unstable.
Yeah, I know.
It's saying that you might, and while he's telling this, Jane is thinking that her book club meets on Sundays. Like, that wouldn't be funny except for Jane's thoughts. I kind of think the whole book is like that now we're talking about it.
Yeah.
None of it would be funny without Jane.
No. And I think I remember you talking about maybe trying writing in the second person, but I don't think you could do it. Well, first of all, it's really hard to do. And second, I don't think you can do it and still maintain the same sense of humor, because you're basically asking the reader to supply the humor, Jane's supplying it all, but she's not talking. Well, she is talking, but she's not. You're getting into her mind. It's hard to explain the third person sometimes.
It really is. And I feel like in the novel, there's the third person narrator, but the narrator is Jane. She's both the character and the narrator.
Exactly. Yeah. And also I liked when you like Ernest Scared Stupid, because it had to be one of the worst movies of all time. And like, why would anyone have watched it? Who would watch it?
My sons probably would have watched it when they were smaller. Like, I feel I seriously am not the same person I was before all those Thomas the Tank Engine videos. And there was a G-Force video that was about gerbils that I was just like, you know what? The cost of being a good parent is too high. I can't do this anymore. I was so happy when like we could watch actual movies.
The worst was Caillou. Did you watch Caillou?
Yeah.
That little kid was a bastard, and his kid should have beat the hell out of him. I mean, his parents should have beat the hell out of him. He was an asshole. I don't know what the lesson of that book was. Let your kid become a complete asshole and congratulate him on it or something. It's because it's Canadian, that's why.
Spy Kids was yeah, we had to go to that in the theater.
Yeah, that wasn't so bad.
Oh.
Maybe. Well, yeah, when our connection is bad and you don't move around, I don't know whether you're really not moving around or you're frozen. So you got to keep moving.
Oh, okay. But I do want to say about letting my children watch stuff is that there was a review last week of the book in the Wall Street Journal where they said that not even the most advanced second grader would know what a lap dance was, because there's like a lap dance joke that a second grader makes. So I said to my sons, you guys knew in the second grade what a lap dance was, right? They're like 18 and 20 now. And so they get all thoughtful and they're like, well, we knew after you let us buy Grand Theft Auto 4 when you were really distracted, and Angus built the strip club with the VIP room in it. So they're like, whatever age we were then, which was like, 8, that's when they knew. And I was like, oh, I don't think this is showing me in the greatest light, but it's also really funny. So
well, today, instead of 18 years ago, everybody knows what a lap dance is. Even if you're 20 months old, you can just type on Google by mistake lap and dance, and then you know what a lap dance is. And I like the way Mr. Robichaux says the lap dances to the kids are very expensive. Which is the only reason either. That's why Hooters works much better for him.
Well, when my older son was 12, he wanted to go to Hooters. He wanted to have a birthday party there, but he'd never been there. I think he thought that it was like the gym had like a birthday party room, but we went there for lunch, the four of us. And my younger son was like, oh, you know, are you going to get a lap dance? And my husband was like, in this really loud voice, my husband was like, you know, lap dances are not very good value. And I was like, he's not saying they're not, you know, like, we hope you never have one. They're demeaning, you know, it's like, it's not worth the money. And my younger son was like, how much could it cost? And my husband was like, you know, at a good place, $100. And and my younger son was like, that's a PlayStation game.
Well, how does your husband know how much they cost anyway?
Well, you know, he's very cosmopolitan man of the world is what I would assume.
One of the more nobler things I've done in my life, which says a lot about me, is I boycott Hooters because I think it's exploitation of the waitresses. But that's like the best thing I've ever done. So, you know, did you name Mr. Robichaux because of Ethan Hawke in The Magnificent Seven by any chance?
No, I don't even know it.
You don't know the Magnificent Seven movie?
No.
Oh, you got to see it. It's great.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
The new one, not the original one.
Okay.
The new one that has the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever I get all these guys confused because it's all Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, Ryan whatever. So I don't know who they are. And then when they, you know, this is funny too, I think. So this morning when I was getting ready, should button this because I'm too old for that. I was talking to my daughter on FaceTime, and of course she looks at me and she goes, Dad, you have the buttons buttoned wrong on your shirt.
Oh.
So I had to unbutton and button it back, and she goes, Dad, they're still wrong. And couldn't you fit that in the book, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's my life. And then the other thing is, like, when you talked about the guy with the uncomfortable underpants on the airplane, yes, I guess it's politics and prose, which really pisses me off because they get all the authors and I don't get every author just because it's politics and prose. But anyway, so did you ever end up writing that? Because it seems like you're the kind of person who must write these things down from time to time, right?
I really don't. I've never kept a journal. I used to email my mom every day for a long time, and I still have all those emails. So it was kind of like, it was pre-Facebook where you just sort of distilled the day's events into something funny. But I haven't written about that guy. And also, like a year later, I was on a plane and my seat was the window seat, and there was a man in the aisle seat, and he asked me to climb over him to get to my seat. And I did it because I thought he had like limited mobility issues. And then he got up twice during the flight. So it was like, I was tricked into giving this man a lap dance. And it made me so happy that basically I wasn't even angry with him.
Well, Curb Your Enthusiasm, there was one episode where the woman was sitting in the middle and she said to Larry, do you mind if I sit on the end because I have overactive bladder?
Uh-huh.
But she never got up once during the flight, and Larry had to get up and she wouldn't move, and she left her leg.
Oh, I love it. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's there's something else I was going to say about something I did, but I can't remember what it was. Okay, where am I? Okay, so the music too. Oh yeah, so the other thing I can't remember is, or can't decide, is whether Frida played the mandolin really well or really badly.
Oh, I think she plays it really, really well.
Really?
Yeah. And I think that her choice of songs is often really grating to Jane, but I think she plays the mandolin well. And my godfather plays the ukulele a lot, and he rewrites the lyrics to songs so they're like about us. And the first time that I brought my husband home when he was my boyfriend to meet my parents and my godparents came out to the airport to meet the plane. And my godfather brought his ukulele and they sang Yankee Doodle Dandy, but with different words about Ian and me when we got off the plane. And can you imagine? My husband must have thought I'd never had a boyfriend before. I'd never brought someone home because they were making such a big deal out of it. And it's really amazing that he married me anyway. But I was telling somebody about that story after the novel was written. And they were like, oh, so that was your inspiration for Frida, who plays the mandolin all the time. And I had never thought of that. It took someone else to point that out to me.
Yeah, it's funny how I used to do that with Baby Beluga. I came up with some really obscene lyrics to Baby Beluga. But it's funny how there's songs in there or poems like when Jane is feeling like this is probably the last thing that once she reads The Spider and the Fly, it's like, or Frida plays a song that is exactly wrong. And finally she, unusually for Jane, said, stop, just stop. And it's unexpected of her and they all respond because it's unexpected and they're very kind to her. But I do, it's funny because, when Duncan comes out to fix to let her in and goes around the corner and opens the window easily, and then within 5 minutes, he's inside, she's eating dinner with him and they're making love. And I thought, this is she's so forward, and, but she otherwise doesn't act in a forward fashion, but they're making love all the time. And then I thought, it's not boy meets girl, boy loses girl. It's girl meets boy. It's girl meets boy, girl loses, it was backwards, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently not to you though.
No, I'm thinking about Jane being forward. I think it's more that life in a super small town just allows things to happen more quickly. You skip steps because everybody knows everybody anyway.
Well, she just got there. Yeah, I guess it was like a way of an introduction to the town.
Of a sort, yeah.
Well, yeah, the other thing that was really good, and I think this is a good way to do it, is that I was trying to explain what Duncan looked like to Carrie, and Carrie didn't get it. I said, he looks like the guy on the brawny paper towels. And she goes, oh. And that's how, sometimes in a book, you're not quite sure what someone looks like. I'm totally sure exactly what he looks like. That was really good.
Oh, like 30 years ago, somebody told me that their boyfriend was as handsome as the brawny paper towel man. And they weren't laughing. They said it totally seriously. And I was like, that's so great. I'm going to use it.
Well, it's like the other day, Carrie said that someone looked like the Gloucester fisherman on the Mrs. Paul's fish sticks.
Oh, yeah. They would have to be wearing like a slicker.
A yellow slicker with a yellow hat.
Yeah.
I have a slicker like that someone gave me that says the Weather Channel on it. And before I got married, it's really easy to pick up girls if they think you work for the Weather Channel, which indicates the type of girl you'd be picking up. But yeah. And
because they want to be dating a minor celebrity, or because they want like the inside scoop on weather?
Well, I would make stuff up, like saying I'm covering the hurricane in New Jersey, even though there wasn't a hurricane. And I said, do you want to go? You want to come with me? It worked.
See, I think you're more like Duncan than Gary.
It's a combination, definitely. There's a lot of Jimmy in me too. And yeah, all of them, Mr. Robichaux, all of them. And Banjo. Banjo's a really nice guy. I love the way he comes to the classroom, makes the drinks.
Yeah, and his original talk that he gave was like longer. I had to cut it, but I had him saying all these really inappropriate things about how you can like sort of if you start off with strong drinks, people get drunk and then they don't notice the later ones are weaker and stuff. So yeah, banjo.
Well, then again, I couldn't find the bathroom either, and they had to have someone come with me, a companion.
What, when you were in school?
No, now, yesterday. Hey, that's the first time you really laughed. I was wondering about that. Because I think sometimes people who make people laugh really a lot don't laugh that much themselves.
Oh, I think I'm kind of a jolly person. My husband makes me laugh a lot. So.
Do you like this? Do you like writing like this? Because it's every 3 or 4 years so far.
Well, I was a late starter. I didn't publish my first book till I was 47. So, but yeah, that's the only way I can write. I think it's basic insecurity. If I'm not writing from joke to joke, I'm worried that people won't be reading. So, but my favorite books are like Heartburn and High Fidelity and Bridget Jones's Diary. And I mean, there are many serious books that I like too, but like a really great comic novel is the best possible experience.
Yeah, your 2 epigraphs are kind of like songs that Jack Black might have put in the movie and High Fidelity, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that that's the kind of music you liked.
Well, it was the kind of music that I was listening to while I wrote the book. And when I was growing up, there was a folk singer named Sean Ryan who played a lot in northern Michigan. And my family and I would always go see him. And it was something great that I could do with my parents when I was a teenager. And I didn't really want to do anything with my parents. And they drove me so crazy. And so folk music has this like very special place in my heart and specifically in northern Michigan. And I still listen to it a lot. And there's a point where Jane is like looking out her kitchen window and she hears song lyrics and she feels really sad. And I was listening to that song on my iPod and looking out the window of my kitchen in Boyne City. It just seemed like when you're writing a novel, it seems like the outside world is helping you write it. It's like inspiration comes bubbling up and everything you see and hear seems like it sort of belongs in the book.
Yeah. And that's not the same way that other authors feel. They all feel differently.
Yeah. Although I think most authors feel in the last quarter of the book that there's a certain momentum that you get because you know the characters so well. And things are moving faster.
I've kept about like 50 journals in my life, and they're all really nice journals, like with Moroccan leather or velvet covers. But when you look at them, first of all, they all stop on March 22nd. And also, all they have in them is what I had for lunch and the price of the lunch. So I could write a book on that, but that's pretty much it, I think, all I have.
You could have been like a great email correspondent with my dad because he always wrote about the recycling and what he had for lunch because he sat down like after lunch to write them. And when we first moved to Bethesda, I went to the dentist and we discovered that his wife was also from Midland, Michigan. Which in all of the places I've lived, I don't think I've ever just spontaneously met somebody else who's from Midland, Michigan. So I wrote my dad this in a super excited way. And my dad wrote back and was like, And I was like, oh my God, I bored my dad. How sad is that?
I don't know. When I called up, my dad answered the phone. Basically, he would say, here's your mother.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. So is it the Tom Paxton? Oh, in the book, when the song when she plays "The Last Thing on My Mind," that was by Tom Paxton, right? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm, sure.
That was the version, right? And then Foghat did it, of all bands, Foghat. But anyway, yeah, those are good songs. They all were good. So do you know what stink bugs are?
Kind of, yeah.
You can't crush them because then the whole room smells horrible for a while.
Yeah.
So like yesterday I was driving and there was a stink bug in the middle of my window. And I thought if I roll the window all the way down, he's going to fall inside the car. So luckily, I watched him, and he was kind enough to walk down to the sill. So I figured I'll roll the window down, and then I'll just flick him out, which I did. So I was quite pleased with it. And then, like I put my thumb to my mouth later, and apparently I hadn't flicked him, and he was between my lips.
Ew.
No, it's horrible. But I didn't swallow him or chew him, so there's that. This is what I do.
You made me laugh again.
I know, it's twice. What else can I talk about? Oh, we're trying to sell your book. You need to focus on that. You need to focus on that fact.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh shit. Okay, I'm telling it. So yesterday, because it's about your book. Yesterday, this woman comes into the bookstore and she says, "This is my first time in since COVID." And I said, "Well, you should come more often." And she says, "No, I have to take care of my ex-husband. He's so sick." And I said, "That's so nice that you still get along." She goes, "We don't." I said, "Well, at least I'm sure he's appreciating what you're doing." And she goes, "No, I hate him. I hate him." And I said, "Well, why are you doing this?" And she goes, "Because I have to," which reminded me of Jane and Jimmy. And so I said, "I have the perfect book for you." And I gave her your book, and I didn't charge her.
Wow.
But I
Let me
paid-
know what she thinks of it.
Yeah, I know. I said, "You're going to love this book. If you don't, bring it back. It's fine. No problem." And no, but she'll love it.
Do you know why she has to take care of him? Did you get any more details?
Same reason Jane has to take care of Jimmy. She doesn't want to. She really doesn't want to.
No, she really doesn't.
So she doesn't want to either, but I guess she's just a good person, right? Like, yeah, same thing.
I guess. Wow, now I want to know this woman's whole story. I'll write a book about her.
She's really nice. She has this long gray hair, and it's just like one of your people. She has this long gray hair, and you think, she's just this. And then you look at her when she smiles, and she's beautiful. And she's like 60 or 70.
That's so nice.
I know. And that's why I like having the bookstore. And it's why I like having the luxury, after practicing law for 30 years, is that I have the luxury of saying, "Okay, here, take this. You'll like it."
Take it. My gift to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think it's a gift. It's just, seems logical. Yeah, it just seems logical. Like this 12-year-old kid came in and he wanted to buy War and Peace by Tolstoy. I mean, seriously, how could I charge him for that?
A long time ago, I worked as an assistant to this woman who was obsessed with Jim Brickman, the musician.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And she wanted me to go to a Jim Brickman concert with her, which I said I would do if she paid me the hourly rate for the time that we went, which was really mean. But then she made me go over to like Ticketmaster or whatever, because there was no internet, you couldn't buy tickets. And so I bought the 2 tickets, and then they had a cardboard cutout of Jim Brickman. And I said to the guy, like, "My boss would so love this." And he was like, "From me to you." So I got to take it back and give it to her. And it still stands out as a really great day, even though I didn't want to go to the concert.
They always say, they go, "It's nice. I always like to pay it forward." I never really like that expression, but it's kind of a good way to live,
It is. Yeah.
But I don't like any expressions like "take care" or "safe flight." Because when you're in the airport and the guy you're buying gum, well, you can't buy gum in an airport, buy a candy bar from, and he goes, have a safe flight. And I say, "You too." But he's not going anywhere. He's staying behind the counter all day.
But there's also like circle back and reach out and
Yes.
journey. I really don't like journey.
Yeah. "Have a blessed day" is my worst, because
That's bad.
I say, "No, I don't think so. No, thank you though." Yeah. And then also, every person, I'm in an elevator with 2 guys, young businessmen in suits, and they're talking, and I say to them, "Are you talking about scalability?" And they go, "Yeah." Because that's all they talk about is scalability, whether they're selling raisins or computers. See, I don't say anything that you have to answer to, so you have to just sit there.
Well, now I'm thinking about that. I gave an interview recently where I said I felt blessed, and then I was really upset with myself for saying that I felt blessed because I meant to say like lucky. And so I went out of my way to like swear a lot in the next few sentences so I wouldn't sound like somebody who says I feel blessed. I like really overcompensated. And then I talked about my toenail fungus because I have no filter left whatsoever.
I was very upset that Duncan had toenail fungus.
It's Luke who has toenail fungus.
Oh, Luke, yeah. Wait a minute. Oh,
But think how upset I am because I actually have it.
oh, that's
I
disgusting.
know. I'm so sorry.
So what do you do when you go to the beach and all people see your toenail fungus and you get a pedicure and stuff like that?
Well, apparently I got it, the doctor says, from getting a pedicure at a sort of dodgy place. But I just put this medicine on it every day and she says it'll be gone soon. I can't believe I'm still talking about my toenail fungus 5 days after I originally brought it up.
No, I can't believe it either.
I know.
I don't like the whole idea of toes.
Well, you have to have them though.
Not really, if you think about it. Evolution, well, yeah, you have to have something that flexes. Otherwise, you couldn't play squash. I thought that might make you laugh, but didn't apparently.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, so there were, oh, so wait a minute, Luke, but then it's Luke Skywalker. That's not Luke, it's not his name. Wait a minute.
No, Luke is Jane's fiance. He's the one with the toenail fungus.
Well, who's Luke Skywalker?
That's Dr. Skywalker, the obstetrician.
So there's two Lukes. Well, he's not Luke. Oh yeah, and the list of names of the women that Duncan has slept with so they can't name their baby, that's quite a list of names, and they're all like stripper names. You know, like,
they are, aren't they?
yeah.
But I didn't want to do just like an alphabetical list that would be like Anne, Barbara, Carol. So I started making the names rhyme, and then once you get a sort of Cindy, Mindy, Lindy, Bambi thing going, yeah, they do sound like strippers.
Yeah. I guess the extreme of Duncan one was when he had sex with all three of the triplets. And
Not
I don't know
at the same
exactly.
time, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, there's no menage a trois. You would think that Duncan, there's like that one in Schitt's Creek. There's that guy who likes to have a menage. Do you watch Schitt's Creek? Have you watched that?
I did. We watched it just during lockdown, and it was like basically the thing that got us through.
Yeah, that was great. And it's all the people we've loved all our lives too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
From Second City TV on. So I didn't understand the Avatar reference because I didn't see why I didn't get it. Was it the truth? What did it mean? Why did you say it? You remember saying it?
I think it was because when we went to see Avatar, it was like people said it was going to change the world, that it was going to be the most mind-blowing movie in history.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was a good movie. I don't know. That's like every book and movie that you hear really great things about. You get so excited. And then, yeah, that's always the kiss of death when somebody's like, this is going to change your life. And then it doesn't.
I know. Or when they appropriate the movie for themselves. That's the one I hate. When it becomes their movie or their book. You have people like that?
What, that say you should see this movie because it's basically my life?
Or no, that I own the movie because I'm telling you about it. That it's not.
Oh, yeah.
Movie.
Yeah.
And there's another kind of person too. The person who likes to call you up immediately when someone dies, almost like in the book. You know, they want to be the first one to tell you someone's died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I realize that people that are assholes for two reasons. One, they're just assholes, or two, it's their hobby.
Oh, so they're doing it deliberately?
Yeah, just as an avocation.
That's kind of Aggie in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jane's mom.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about her.
Yeah. And it's so funny because when she takes Jimmy aside into the kitchen, she's so nice to him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So very, very nice. But it's only, I think there might be another time too, but it's really interesting the way she did that.
I like Jane's mother. Like a lot of people really hated Jane's mother, but she was a lot of fun to write. And I thought that she was, I thought her kindness to Jimmy was maybe her saving grace, aside from just being a funny character. And there's a point late in the book where she talks to Duncan really explicitly about her menopause. And that did make me laugh when I was writing it. I was like, this is making me really happy.
Yes, because you like using the word flow, heavy flow.
Yeah. And because Duncan's just like so traumatized by the whole thing.
It's the only time in the book that he is traumatized.
I know. But wouldn't you be?
No. Nothing surprises me or shocks me.
Or traumatizes.
I'm just looking at it from the outside. It doesn't really happen. That's the problem is basically my life is just a commentator. I don't really have a real something inside. It's just me watching me do stuff.
But I think that's like all writers. And I think that people are always barking on about how smartphones prevent you from being present in the world, which they totally do. But if you're a writer, you're born with a smartphone in your brain and you're always filtering everything and thinking, can I use it in a story? Will it be funny? I just think there's that remove.
Yesterday when I was in the gym and I was at the urinal and some guy was peeing next to me, he had his AirPods in and he was talking while he was peeing. And I wanted to tell him, what the hell's wrong with you, you idiot? And then like 10 years ago, you would have thought he should be institutionalized. But now it's just like, oh, like in the book where Jane didn't understand what was going on, even though she had listened to him talk on his phone really loudly for 30 minutes.
What was this guy talking about?
He was talking about scalability.
Oh.
Something very like scalability. Oh, you do that. He goes, what do you say in the book? Like, oh no, I don't know. Next Thursday, it's on my desk. It's on my desk. You know, and it's all the stuff people say that doesn't really make any difference because they're not really doing anything anyway.
Well, it's always the people talking loudest on their phones who are like, do you want me to get, Pet Cemetery 2 or 3 at the store? Like, I mean, people don't rent videos anymore, so that's an outdated reference. But it's always like the most prosaic. Nobody's ever having an interesting conversation.
No, I like when it's like a husband's talking to his wife and he goes, no, it's not that pipe. No, move over and reach down that pipe. No, the one with the red handle.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of those too. I like those. And the other thing is they're letting you listen to their life. And that's very strange. That never happened before. And also, go ahead.
I grew up, we were on a party line, which makes me sound like I'm 150, but my dad was convinced like that, I don't know, somehow that it was going to be this big money saver. There was only one other family in the whole town on the party line, but I grew up with like, you could pick up and hear them talking and it was never, ever anything interesting.
Yeah. Although I like eavesdropping.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah. I'm also kind of an exhibitionist when I go to a hotel because I always leave the curtains open. Oh, was there something in your book about, or did I just read this yesterday somewhere where these people wrote a letter to their neighbors saying, the one-way glass in your bathroom is not really one way?
Oh, I didn't write that, but I really like it.
Yeah, that was good. I don't remember what book that was in. I love your books and I love talking to you each time they come out, and seeing you this time was so much nicer.
It was really
Yeah.
nice.
See ya.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.